What's cooking? What's poppin'? It's your boy Pat Chennington, and today I want to talk about what are, in my opinion, the 17 most aesthetic songs in video game history. And when I say aesthetic, I'm referring to songs from my childhood that will effortlessly and timelessly pump out nostalgic magic and romanticize memories every time I happen to hear these video game tunes. Furthermore, aesthetic in the sense that these songs can be easily recognized as having a vaporwave style or touch to them. Some of these tracks I think you'll know and love just as much as I do. However, a couple of these I think you'll be discovering for the first time, and I am very excited to introduce them to you. From songs that are quaint, ambient, and atmospherically hazy to songs that are rather upbeat, sunny, or pseudo-futuristic, I will be presenting today a wide range of musical styles found in video games from our past. I want to exhibit a diverse selection of tracks that only further enhance how these adventurous games rubbed off on us as kids. Soundtracks with an undeniable ability to absorb us through our television or computer screens into the worlds they generated for us. Worlds so hopeful and promising of endless wanderlust. And before we start this video, guys, if you want to read this video in article form, you can head on over to Vapor95. I have written an article on this topic on their site. They have a ton of cool Vaporwave stuff there, merch, blogs, all this stuff. Go check them out. I'm going to leave a link in the description of this video below. And also, as always, if it's your first time here, drop a like on the video, hit the subscribe button, and click the bell so you never miss a thing, because if you're just subscribed on YouTube nowadays, it doesn't mean anything. So yeah, do all that. Thank you so much. I love you to death. Let's jump right into this video. Bomberman 64, Nintendo 64, 1997, Blue Resort. Let's start off the countdown with one of the most beautiful stages I have ever seen and heard in a Nintendo 64 video game. I want to take a visit to the floating fortress in the middle of a cerulean-colored sea, the Blue Resort. The constant escalating nature of the upward progression in this track makes me feel like I'm afloat a hot air balloon looking down at the boxy shapes and clunky textures of the Blue Resort. This is done by combining a ton of different types of sounds on the track. Whistles, electronic pianos, and a jovial sounding accordion are just some of the instrumental inclusions all going against one another to really exaggerate this tightly congested, staircase-infested world of this unforgettable Bomberman 64 level. A MIDI battlefield leaving you with nothing but a craving to explore. Also, any Death's Dynamic Shroud fans in the house? If so, you may recognize this little guy on their behemoth of an album, Derelict. Pilotwings, Super Nintendo, 1990, Flight Club. Oh yeah, the fluffy, cloudy world of Pilotwings. Next up at number 16 on our list, let's soar into another Sky-inspired tune. A little synth harmony oozing a sense of exploration, adventure, and airtime discovery. Sometimes, all it takes is a little jingle that can trigger the innocent memories of wanting to aimlessly explore the atmosphere as a child. Pilotwings will always remind me of this one friend I had growing up. I never owned an SNES as a kid, so whenever I would go to his house, I would try to make sure that anything we did revolved around playing the damn console. Am I a shitty friend who possibly only hung out to play Nintendo? Maybe. Did I have an unquenchable thirst to glide through a 16-bit world of pixelated, gradient color skies? Yes. Priorities, my friend. Marvel Superheroes Arcade 1995, Iron Man Stage. Overly ambitious technology that definitely did not exist at the time, yet we all believed one day would in like 20 or so years. A notion of the hopeful past I always loved as a fun and recognizable Vaporwave narrative. At number 15 on our list, we are gonna be chillin' with Tony Stark and grooving out to the music found on his stage in 1995's Marvel Superheroes, a fighting game extremely tame compared to the massive rosters we find in later installations like Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Originally made for arcades, I actually owned the PlayStation port of this game when I was around I had to be 5 or 6 years old, and to this day, I can still remember this being one of the most memorable tracks on the entire soundtrack. Dramatic synth work, a subtle electric guitar, and clobbering drums, all making the inner workings of a track perfectly resonate a complicated computer-esque vibe. Diddy Kong Racing, Nintendo 64, 1997, Darkmoon Caverns. Featuring a selection of colorful, rare licensed characters, Diddy Kong Racing was undoubtedly electric, bright, and sunny, with all different types of worlds you can race in. While many remember Mario Kart 64 as their go-to party-starting racer from the mid-90s, Diddy Kong Racing always seemed more inviting and sensational to me. One reason this came to be was for the incredibly infectious soundtrack featured within the game. I can really pick like a good handful of levels here that blast me with that serious nostalgic joy, but one level in particular that I have to give as having hands down the most aesthetic music in the goddamn game is the level Darkmoon Caverns. This is what Daft Punk would sound like if they made a track for the Nintendo 64. A dancey 2 minutes of cosmic jingles combined with this synth that is absolutely infectious. I can't even really describe it, you just gotta go hear it. Every second of this track oozes an intergalactic personality that seamlessly connects you with the rainbow-colored terrain you find yourself driving in. I can totally see someone turning this into a future funk banger. So listen, somebody get on that right now, like go sample that right now. Freddi Fish and the Case of the Missing Kelp Seeds, PC 1994, Lighting the Room. There was a long time ago where I would wake up every day before school, a little extra early, and sneak into my basement, boot up our compact desktop computer, and play whichever humongous entertainment game my first grade heart desired on that specific morning. I knew I had to pick something from their catalog to put on this list, and why not go with my boy, Freddi Fish. Specifically the entry Freddi Fish and the Case of the Missing Kelp Seeds. Number 13 on this list is given to a track called Lighting the Way that plays when dwelling the Skull Caves area of the game. A faint little underwater inspired harp number, a bit eerie as well, combined with a little steel drum action that really showcased the beauty in exploring your surroundings, whether they were unknown or not. The dreadful visions of an underwater void, endless dark blue color flooding any possible escape from this oceanic world, ironically present in a cute little game about a bright yellow fish. The Wii Shop Channel Music, Wii 2006. Come on, baby, how could I not include the Wii Shop Channel music on this list? Your convenient gateway to virtual shopping in the mid-2000s, the funky elevator-style music that played in the background of the Wii Shop Channel was the perfect instigator to wanting to own anything Nintendo put up for sale. I personally can't remember a time I actually bought anything on there. I was pretty young and did not own a credit card at the time, but there was definitely something about browsing the Wii Shop Channel back in the day with the music in the background that made the whole concept so fun and relaxing to just like chill and see what they had to offer. The Nintendo Wii, to me at least, blew my mind back in the mid-2000s. It was the first console I ever owned that allowed me to connect to the internet. That clean, white design interface with a savory little tune behind it was all I needed to get lost in the world of virtual window shopping. After this video, go type in Wii Shop Channel Music on YouTube and change the playback speed to 0.75. Let me tell you, talk about Vaporwave. Now, if they only had a reverb button as well. Rollaway, PlayStation, 1998, Myst, or World 6. Also known as Kula Quest in Japan, the soundtrack of soft tones and tranquil ambience found in this cheeky puzzle game was super soothing, yet motivating when trying to complete each stage. Rollaway for the PlayStation was another one of those games where we are presented with this floating area stranded in what seemed to be a world of empty surroundings, which right away that's already Vaporwave in itself. Just the player on some level high in the sky, like you don't know how you got there, but you're there and that's all that exists. It's a pretty scary world. You control a ball and collect a bunch of shiny gems and coins that trigger these cool, shiny sound effects every time you pick one up. Rollaway is a really fun hidden gem of a collectathon puzzle game and is further advanced by its wonderful soundtrack. My favorite song on here is the quirky, futuristic sounding background music that plays in the 6th world of the game, titled Mist. It has this cool little hip-hop drum beat behind it as well that I can really see someone like Vaporwave artist Haircuts for Men sample pretty easily. The track has a lot going on, just like the amount of thinking one might have to do when completing a level in this intelligently laid out puzzle platformer. Super Mario 64 and 64 1996, Jolly Roger Bay. Someone tell me, seriously, what is more aesthetic than water levels from 3D platforming adventure games in the 1990s? Out of all the aquatic themed levels from this brilliant time in gaming, you cannot leave out the angelic beauty splashed right into your eardrums upon entering the Jolly Roger Bay level of Super Mario 64. A track that introduces more and more layers as it goes on. We start off with some of the most divine and heavenly synths I've ever heard. Eventually, some strings come in to accompany the synth, evolving the track into an even grander landscape. And then, to top it all off, this groovy drum beat slowly fades its way into the track and makes it an even grander landscape. This really fun, offbeat ride cymbal flow that I really love. Beloved Nintendo composer Koji Kondo created a track that perfectly replicates the visual elements found within the level, an uncanny ability to warp your soul deep under the depths of the ocean. Just make sure you climb to the surface before your blue health meter runs out. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, Game Boy Advance 2002, Boat Cruise. Sunny days at sea and an adventure at every corner. At song number 9 on this list, I want to set sail with you and travel through the exciting waters of the Hoenn region. The music that plays when boarding Mr. Brinny or Mr. Briny's ship, whatever his name is, his tiny little ass boat, is one of the most uplifting and feel-good compositions I have ever heard for a handheld video game. I remember I used to straight up ride the boat like 2 or 3 times back and forth just so I could hear the music a couple times. It was so damn good. Where Jolly Roger Bay was murky, lurking, and atmospheric, the music that plays in this game presents an aquatic adventure way more celebratory, cheerful, and optimistic. What I would do to ride this boat with a couple Coronas and soak in some sun, I'm itching to roast like a rotisserie chicken. Elebits, Wii, 2006, a spaceship fantasy. Elebits, a lesser-known game that came out in the early stages of the Nintendo Wii that takes on a very cool twist to the first-person shooter genre, is a beautiful game full of color and wonderful music to go with it. The game involves you going from level to level, capturing little creatures known as Elebits to extract the energy they emit. I always remember loving the soundtrack for this game, and not being able to specifically pick out any level I remember or loved more than the other, I decided to go back online for this list and really revisit the entire soundtrack all these years later to see if one of them really stuck out to me. And let me tell you, the track A Spaceship Fantasy is fantastic. If Blank Banshee, decided to go drum and bass combined with a little musical flow structured around jazz, this is what you would get. Go check that track out. Mall Tycoon, PC 2002, Society Bash by Alain Leroux. Here we go, another Leroux. It's Leroux, right? I was obsessed with Tycoon games when I was a kid. I mean, who wasn't? And the fact that I had a chance at running my very own mall, that was just pure mind-blowingness. Mall Tycoon involved you creating and maintaining your own mall. And looking back at this game all these years later, you really begin to miss the hustle and bustle of hectic shopping malls from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, even if you weren't alive at those times. The entire game has a wonderful track list to help you create the mall of your dreams. But one track in particular, titled Society Bash by Alain Leroux, really invigorates my weird passion for hyperconsumerism and mall shopping bliss of buying things you don't really need. Luxurious saxophones, jazzy drumming, and the perfectly placed xylophone makes this piece an open door to a world now replaced by online shopping. LSD Emulator, PlayStation 1998, Pit and Temple Ambient E. That was a long one. One of the most wackiest and experimental games was undoubtedly going to find its way onto this list. So everyone, say hola to LSD Dream Emulator. A game that constantly generates bizarre and fever-dreamish worlds, LSD Dream Emulator contained a wide variety of background tracks that stuffed you into the bizarre fashion of the levels the game contained. One track in particular that really echoed this chaotic nature is definitely this track, titled in the game soundtrack as Pit and Temple Ambient E. This sounds like some new deluxe life kind of shit. This track has a constant loop of erroneous stutter chops and random notes, all perfectly encapsulating the psychedelic dangers this shocking visual experience of a game brings to the player. Oh, and also, who the hell titled this as an ambient track? Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, Nintendo 64, 2000, File Select Menu. Leaving behind the world of LSD Dream Emulator, let's enter another colorful world that is instead way more joyful and comfy. What's cooking, Curbs? I love menu music, right? I love the pause button music. I love pressing start and hearing what a game has got to give me. I think we all do. A little sample of sound that is calm and dormant to allow the player to choose what he or she would like to do next in the game, and the file select music in this game fits that bill perfectly. These echoing, freezing cold synth notes that sound like some rainbow-colored icicles falling in synchronized form are so mystical, and I can really listen to this thing on repeat for quite a while. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, PlayStation 1999, Library Menu Theme. Okay, no joke, this is Vaporwave before Vaporwave was even a thought. Go listen to this right now. You're welcome. That's all I got. Donkey Kong Country, Super Nintendo 1994, Aquatic Ambiance. The last three entries on this list are some of the most aesthetic songs, not just in video games, of all time, so buckle up. Actually, you know what? Before you buckle up, go get some scuba equipment first because we gon' get a little wet. Donkey Kong Country is a game many of us spent hours upon hours playing, a game holding incredible 3D graphics unparalleled at its time, with a soundtrack equally as excellently crafted. The music that plays in the very first Aquatic level is an exceptional piece of ambient beauty that features some wonderful harps poking in and out of the song at varying times. We also hear a harmonica melody on top of a delightful, tranquil stretching of background synths, as well as a subtle slice of percussion to blend it all into a delicate yet adventurous marine-inspired piece of gaming music. One comment I found when browsing the comments of this song on YouTube perfectly described the aura of it all. I remember when I was a kid and this came out, I used to pause it on this level so that the music played and the blue light would shine off the TV screen and make my room gleam in blue. I used to lay in my bed and fall asleep, and my dad would come in and turn the game and TV off. Wave Race 64, Nintendo 64, 1996, Milky Lake. Neon plaster jet skis racing through the ocean waves. Does it get more aesthetic than that? This was another game that I never owned as a kid, but I had a friend whose house I would frequent to play it. Pat, you were such a shitty friend. The most rewarding sounding flute I have ever heard in my life. The music that plays at the Milky Lake is another one of those adventure-bound sounding stages that really brought to life my eagerness to explore these virtual worlds. Some fun shakers constantly going on in the background to really boost that racing vibe. Wave Race 64 is a goldmine for aesthetic-seeking folks. I highly recommend getting lost in the soundtrack that game provides. And finally, the most aesthetic song in video game history has to go to the one, the only, Lego Island for the PC 1997, The Information Center. Lego Island, you will always have my heart, and I gladly give you this number one spot. The amount of time I must have spent exploring this goddamn city that somehow only functions with like 10 different stores and amenities, with a soundtrack blending MIDI deliciousness that has a yacht rock sensation at its core. The music of Lego Island is what would happen if Prism Corp Virtual Enterprises and Surfing collaborated on making music for a video game. One track that I have to give as the most aesthetic track I have ever heard in a video game is the music that plays when you are in the Information Center. A sun-baked track featuring all kinds of bongos, shakers, and other rattling and animated jolts of sound. Hearing this music brings me right back to that Lego brick-filled world, cruising the island and what this world had to offer for me. It could have been snowing outside in the dead of winter, but it was tunes like this one that made me feel like I was chilling in some tropical, Lego-filled paradise all year round. So I would like to know, what are some of your favorite video game songs, specifically ones that have that good, dusty aesthetic? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next video. Much love, your boy, Pad Chennington.